Podcast 107. Culture is the New Economy. ISBN 9781 63877 9452. My cognitive skills were activating at the fact that culture is seemingly the underpinning of the new economy. This ethos has galvanized my thinking, especially since the word culture comes from Latin cultere, which means cultivation, as in agricultura, field cultivation. Succinctly put, although culture is a word for the way of life of groups of people, meaning the way they do things, therefore, in all plausibility, can this way of doing things invariably connote or be interpreted as culture seemingly is the new economy? That said, there is a school of thought which imputes culture and economy in traditional academic discourse. Culture and economy have long been regarded as separate analytical spheres. On the one hand, the realm of shared cognitions, norms, and symbols studied by anthropologists. On the other hand, the realm of self-interest, where economists reign supreme. Consequently, the strong positive correlation between individualism on one hand and measures of long-run growth and innovation on the other hand can be due to a causal effect of culture on innovation and growth. One can also argue, however, that there might be a reverse causality at work. As countries get richer, their culture becomes more individualistic. To belabor my point, as a practitioner, my focal point is important, especially looking at this topic through my cognitive lens will generally need an interest point or fact to really hold it. Without this application, it is highly probable readers may probably not examine the statement. Moreover, in the context of photography, according to Todd Vorakamp, whether it is the 35mm lens or the 50mm lens that closest approximates the field of view of the Mark I Mod 0 human eyeball minus the peripheral vision. If you do the math, the Sycar 45 degrees field of view of the 50mm lens is a bit narrower than the approximated 55 degrees cone of visual attention, and the 35mm lens is a bit wider at about 63 degrees. Basically, both the 50mm and 35mm lenses see the world the way our own eyes do, give or take a few degrees. Because they do not bend light from wide angles or zoom into a smaller part of our eye's image, these lenses provide our photographs with a familiar aesthetic, a realistic representation of the world that we all see when we open our eyes. Now that I have provided some context by inserting the word culture, which is derived from the Latin root cultere or cultus, meaning to inhabit, cultivate, or honor, through my lens as an author, student of film, media arts specialist, licensed cultural practitioner, and publisher, because the same seems to imply culture is the new economy. It is because of the aforesaid line of reasoning that in the process of hypothesizing plausibly as a result of the various aspects of our individual identity that we use to create membership with others to form a shared cultural identity, namely race, ethnicity, nationality, gender, sexual orientation, and social class, presumably may play some role in creating a new economy. The reason for such thinking has to do with the fact that the word culture comes from Latin culturare, which means cultivation, as in agriculture, field cultivation. Conversely, although there is a perception, culture is a word for the way of life of groups of people, meaning the way they do things, yet the fact remains that the Latin root cult means grow. This Latin root is the word origin of a good number of English vocabulary words, including culture, cultivate, and horticulture. At the end of this dispensation era, according to Wikipedia, digital platforms still rely on deep learning to scale up the algorithm's capacity. The human-powered content labeling industry is constantly growing as companies seek to harness data for AI training. These practices have raised concerns concerning the low-income revenue and health-related issues of these independent workers. For instance, digital companies such as Facebook or YouTube use content monitor contractors who work as outside monitors hired by a professional services company subcontractor to monitor social media to remove any inappropriate content. Since the culture of a people is their identity as it affords them due recognition, a view espoused by Coshix Posey. It is plausible, therefore, that the introduction of culture is the new economy, that the traditional culture becomes lost. This transition is inevitable on condition of acculturation, aging population, concentration and contemplation, globalization, ideology, invention, technology, and old cultural patterns being replaced by new ones. I must confess that being a deep thinker is a great gift, since it allowed me to delve into the very essence of things and be more conscious. It is because of this line of reasoning that I have decided to delve into the various premises regarding culture is the new economy within the current global context. Cultural coherence, especially as it became evident that members of close-knit groups held radically different visions of their social worlds. Culture is no longer perceived as a knowledge system inherited from ancestors. Moreover, many social scientists now treat culture as a set of ideas, attributes, and expectations that change as people react to changing circumstances. Indeed, by the turn of the 21st century, the collapse of barriers enforced by Soviet communism and the rise of electronic commerce has increased the perceived speed of social change everywhere. The more developed an economy is, the higher the share of the service sector. This trend is termed as the service economy, or the shift to services. Not only the share of service industries in production, employment, consumption, and trade grow to be higher, but also the proportion of services in intermediate inputs for other industries' production goes up. Although it is commonly observed that an economy tends to shift to services as its per capita income increases, however, the answers to the questions of why such a shift takes place in the first place and what kind of impact such a structural change has, especially on growth, are quite diverse in the literature, and there are still moot points. A 1983 cover article in Time, The New Economy, described the transition from heavy industry to a new technology-based economy. According to Crystal Wilson, the digital economy is also referred to as the Internet economy. A key feature of the old economy was that location mattered. Companies wanted to be located near transportation and the raw materials and labor they needed to meet the consumer demand and to be profitable. Inexpensive places to do business was a key feature of the old economy. Gig work is labor that consists of temporary and flexible jobs that are usually done over delivery apps and ride-share services such as Grubhub, Uber, Lyft, and Uber Eats. The birth of the gig economy has become desirable to those who want to have more flexibility in their schedule. It allows those, even with full-time employment, to make some side money when they clock out of their day job. Since these workers are considered independent contractors, these companies are not responsible for giving its workers benefits like it would a regular full-time employee. This has resulted in the formation of unions between gig and platform workers and various reforms within the industry. The widespread adoption of information communication technologies, combined with the rapid decline in price and increase in the performance of these technologies, have contributed to the developed new activities in both the private and public sector. These new technologies allow market reach and lower the costs. It offers a window of opportunities to development, new products and services not needed before. This field changes the ways multinational enterprises as well as startups are doing business and change the design of their business models. Mobility of intangibles have to do with both development and exploitation of intangible assets, which is a key feature of the digital economy. This investment in and development of intangibles such as software is a core contributor to value creation and economic growth for companies in the digital economy. In early 2000, companies have started to substantially increase the amount of capital allocated to intangibles such as branding, design, and technology rather than in hardware, machinery, or property. Given its expected broad impact, traditional firms are actively assessing how to respond to the changes brought about by the digital economy. For corporations, the timing of their response is of the essence. Banks are trying to innovate and use digital tools to improve their traditional business. The digital economy uses a tenth of the world's electricity. The move to the cloud has also caused a rise in electricity use and carbon emissions by the digital economy. A server room at a data center can use, on average, enough electricity to power 180,000 homes. According to the digital economy can be used for mining Bitcoin, which, according to Digiconomist, uses an average of 70.69 TWh of electricity per year. The number of households that can be powered using the amount of power that Bitcoin mining uses is around 6.5 million in the US. It is reported by Memax.com that even before the novel coronavirus came along and made us much more conscious about what we touch, researchers have been trying to tell us how paper money turns wallets into a portable Petri dish teeming with microscopic life. A cashless society describes an economic state in which transactions no longer use physical currency such as banknotes and coins as the medium. Transactions, which would historically have been undertaken with cash, are often now undertaken electronically. This has gradually become a hot topic in today's society because the world is increasingly using digital or virtual currencies for transactions through electronic platforms. According to BBC, as reported by Aisha, that the rise of the Bitcoin, often described as cryptocurrency, a virtual currency or a digital currency, is a type of money that is completely virtual. It's like an online version of cash. You can use it to buy products and services, but not many shops accept Bitcoin yet, and some countries have banned it altogether. Bitcoins are valuable simply because people believe they are. There are lots of things other than money which we consider valuable, like gold and diamonds. The Aztecs used cocoa beans as money. Bitcoins are valuable because people are willing to exchange them for real goods and services and even cash. The digital single market was included as part of the SMA1 and SMA2 initiatives. Even if the question had already come up earlier in 1990 and was brought up again later in 2010, it emerged at a sensitive moment in the post-crisis of 2008, used as a catalyst for action. According to Wikipedia, the new economy referred to the ongoing development evolved from the notions of the classical economy as a result not only from the transition from a manufacturing-based economy to a service-based economy, but also meant the new horizons resulted from the constant emergence of new parameters of new technology and innovations. This popular use of the term started from the dot-com bubble of the late 1990s, where high growth, low inflation, and high employment of this period led to overly optimistic predictions and many flawed business plans. Electronic money, commonly abbreviated e-money, and Bitcoin are two systems for making payments that are digital in nature. Both are catalysts in the mobile payments revolution, but that is where their similarities end. In reality, the two systems are extremely different. Today's infographic sums up the major points to consider when thinking about these ideas. E-money is an electronic component of fiat currency systems and still trades in familiar units such as dollars, euros, pesos, or yen. E-money is typically regulated and controlled within the framework of our government's central banking system. The customers of such transactions are identified on the Financial Action Task Force standards and as a result are not anonymous. Bitcoin is a decentralized electronic currency that derives its value from supply and demand as well as trust in the system. The network uses complex math to verify transactions, and the people that volunteer their computing power to the network or miners are generated bitcoins as a reward for their efforts. Customers are anonymous in that they are not directly identified under Financial Action Task Force standards. Overall, I must confess that this conversation was fully ventilated in accordance with belief systems, values, and behaviors that support a particular ideology or social arrangement was critical because culture guides language use, appropriate forms of dress, and views of the world, including the digital economy, which is based on computing technologies, a view espoused by LumnenLearning.com. All things being equal, focusing through the research lens was a systematic investigation into and study of materials and sources concerning culture and the new economy. This process enable me to establish facts and reach new conclusions taking place on the stage of modern society. With its materialistic values, this constant inquiry and a profound awareness that accompany deep thinking was quite challenging. Finally, at the end of the day, I have discovered that scholars in many disciplines invariably may agree to some point on their journey that current culture will become the lost culture and replaced by the culture is the new economy, was framed and composed in 11 chapters in ISBN 978 63877 9452.